Hey guys, it's Cam from TodaysiPhone.com, and I've got here a list of all your questions that you asked me recently. So firstly, I want to turn my attention to Facebook. We got a lot of questions from one guy in particular called Brian. Among the questions he asked about the specs on the iPhone 4 and why they weren't as much of a spec leader as what they could have been. Why is there so much focus on the paint instead of on the technology? He asked about the notifications and widgets. Why don't we have widgets? And why is there no flash? And why is there no Sprint or T-Mobile iPhone? I think a lot of those questions can be answered by one thing, and I think it's because Apple is more about user experience than about specs. So things like the colour of the device, the way it looks, the way it feels, the way it works is a lot more important than if it's got the fastest processor or the best screen or if it's got 3D technology or anything like that. I mean, Apple just wants to make stuff that's really good for the user. Now obviously that includes putting widgets on there. If there were widgets on there, the battery life would be awful. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be the option to put widgets on there, because I think we should be free to customize our devices as we want to. But if they were there as standard, I think you would see a pretty rapid decline in battery life on all iOS devices. And again, Flash is the same. Flash would be there if it was completely reliable. But as Steve Jobs said, most Safari browsers on Macs crash because of an error with Flash. Also, looking at other devices that have Flash already, it doesn't run that great on them. I've seen it running on Android, I've seen it running on the BlackBerry Playbook, and I mean sometimes it's okay, but I mean not all the time, and that would create for a pretty negative internet browsing experience. Now obviously on the other side of that is having no Flash at all offers a pretty negative web experience if you happen to like sites that have Flash on them. But in the whole time I've had my iPad and the iPhone, I've not once been on a site that it couldn't read that I wanted to see, because there's not hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sites with Flash. It's getting old, and I think they're bringing in a new era of HTML5 which looks nicer and performs better. In regards to your Sprint and T-Mobile iPhone, from my own personal perspective, I think it made sense that AT&T got the iPhone first. As with every other network in the world, each country had one network, a carrier, where the iPhone had the exclusivity, and it was generally the most popular carrier. And obviously Verizon couldn't have it because GSM technology is the worldwide standard, and so AT&T got it. Verizon customers obviously have been a bit annoyed over the past few years, and so they decided to release a new CDMA version of the iPhone, and then they've released that in other countries where they have CDMA. I think you can definitely expect to see a Sprint and T-Mobile iPhone at some point in the next couple of years. Here in the UK, O2 UK had the exclusive on the iPhone for a good 2.5 years before anyone else got it. Then Orange UK got it in November 2009, then in January the following year Vodafone got it, and then by the time the iPhone 4 came out, pretty much every carrier sells the iPhone, all the major carriers, and the biggest MVNO also carries it. So I think you can definitely expect it, it's just not out yet. Okay, so another question on Facebook. How can I stop Apple from stalking me and following me around? I don't want them to save where I've been. I think this is it's another one of those things to do with Apple that's been thrown all out of proportion. Like Antenna Gate last year, the glass back smashing too easily. I mean, it's not really an issue. What happens basically is whenever you log on to a mast near you, your phone saves that mast's location. Now, when you sync with your iTunes on your computer, it saves it on your computer. It doesn't get sent to anybody else. It doesn't magically email to all your friends and all the most dodgy characters that are around. It just doesn't. It doesn't go to Apple. It stays on your computer. The only way you can access it and decode this data is if you download an app for your MacBook. It doesn't even work on PCs. And you're not in any danger at all of being stalked unless you're a celebrity or someone that's high in power, like the president. Or, I mean, it's not really an issue. I mean, there's rumours that the next iOS update will include the fix for this bug, as they call it. So it will no longer save it and record it onto your computer. But also, if you can't wait until then, there is also actually an app available now in the Big Boss repository and the Cydia App Store for jailbroken iPhones, where you can stop it from tracking where you go. So, I mean, if you're that concerned, you can stop it from happening. But hopefully, from the next update onwards, it's not an issue. Now, just to reiterate something Steve Jobs said recently, he was in an interview, and I mean, they do take your privacy and your location very seriously, to the extent where every time you open an app that wants to use your location, a little pop-up comes up on your screen first and says, will you allow this app to store your location or to send your location? And I mean, they're pretty big on it, and it's not something that concerns me greatly. I don't think it's a big issue. I think if I had an Android device that was constantly sending my location up to Google, then I'd be worried, and that does happen. So I wouldn't worry, basically, is my answer. I have another question on the main site. Jimmy asks, I have an iPad, can I run FaceTime on it? No. Pretty simple answer. If you've got a first generation iPad like this one, no, you can't. There's no camera front or back, so you can't make video calls. But if you've got the second generation iPad, obviously that's got a camera, and you can make FaceTime calls. It's as simple as that. We got a question on YouTube from Alessander. He says, when does the iPhone 5 come out? We don't know. It's the simple answer. The long answer is hopefully in June, when it always comes out, but it doesn't look likely this year. It could be pushed back till September. But we're not sure, but I'm expecting September now, following all the rumours recently and the fact that no one's really seen any evidence of it being made yet. So yeah, I guess September's probably the best thing to go with. One more question we got on YouTube. It came after a suggestion. He said he wanted to see more cases, applications and comparisons on our site, which we're always aiming to do. He says, why do I like the iPhone and iOS? I've been thinking about it the last week or so. You may have seen my posts on the site about how in different areas how iOS beats Android, and it's for these things like the app buying experience. It's easy. You can download it from one centralized place. You can sync it with your computer and it backs it up automatically. You don't have to download any separate apps to back it up. That makes it really easy. I mean, the iTunes ecosystem with your music and your media and your apps all in one place, it's brilliant. Also, ease of use, the fact that you don't have to think about how to do things, you can just do it. I mean, a lot of Android lovers will argue that because you like it easy, then you're stupid. That's not the case at all. I could quite happily figure out how to use an Android. I just don't want to. I like using iOS. I like the fact that I can just use it without thinking. Why do you want to think when you're using a device? You just want it to do what you want it to do. And to a certain extent, and to use an old Apple cliche, it just works. Now, that being said, I wasn't actually that keen on the iPhone 4. I liked the performance, I liked the screen, but the actual size and form factor and the fact that it had a flat back that was slippy and shiny, and I mean, it's just too easy to drop, and in the end it really frustrated me. But I mean, the iPhone 3GS itself is probably my favourite. Probably my favourite iPhone. I loved that because it felt good in your hand and it worked. It might not have been the top spec phone out, but I didn't particularly care. It worked well for me. So yeah, I mean, that's why I like iPhone and iOS. I really love the iPad. It's great for my family, it's great for my kids. They've got apps on there that they can use. There's like baby book reading apps and stuff that my young daughter can use, and also ones for even younger babies like my son. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of all inclusive. It doesn't single out people and tell them you can't use this device because it's too complicated for you. Anyone can use it, and I guess that's another reason why I like iOS and iPhone so much. Okay guys, I think that's it from me. If you have any more questions, feel free to use the comment section below. Let me know what you think. Ask any questions to do with anything to do with iPhone or me or the site. Feel free, it doesn't matter how personal, I'll try and answer. And also don't forget to check out our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/TodaysiPhone. And if you want to ask me anything on Twitter, I'm there too. It's @TiP_cam. And I'll be sure to answer your questions in the future. But for now, I'll see you later.